I'm going to lay out and explain the key points of a film script by using the movie Prisoners from 2013 for examples. It's directed by, and I can never pronounce his name, Denis Villeneuve. Every performance in it is great. The direction is great, the story's great, everything about it. It stars Hugh Jackman, Jake Gyllenhaal, Paul Dano, Terrence Howard, and Viola Davis. If you haven't seen this movie, I highly suggest it. I recommend you watch it before this because I'm going to completely spoil it for you. So the key story structure of any successful movie is as follows. First, you have the setup, followed by the inciting incident, followed by the first pinch point, then the first plot point, then the obstacle, followed by the midpoint, followed by a false sense of security, then the second plot point, the climax, and finally the resolution. Those are the main ingredients to the story structure of a film. In films, there's also these things called plants and payoffs that are sprinkled in. What these do is they help to add more flavor. They're kind of like the little pieces of evidence that help propel the story. They keep the audience guessing, and they reveal things when they need to be revealed. They add more shades of meaning to the overall picture. Prisoners is 2.5 hours long, but it follows the story structure I laid out pretty tightly. So let's jump right in. The setup consists of the opening image, so the opening shot. It shows the setting. It introduces the characters. It lets the audience see the overall vibe of the story that the characters are about to journey through. In Prisoners, this part is the first shot where Keller and his son are hunting and he's shooting the deer to when they join their neighbors for Thanksgiving dinner. During this part, we learn some important elements. We learn it's the holiday season and the weather is going to be an issue throughout the movie. We learn that our main character is a father. He's a family man. He loves spending time with his son and teaching his son life lessons. And also, he recites a prayer before shooting the deer.
For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever.
This serves to show us two things. It shows us that he respects the gift of life while also reserving the capacity for violence or inflicting damage if it is necessary. The plants during this time of story setup, if you notice the RV sitting in the road and the girls kind of climbing on it and playing on it and the brothers asking, you know, what's going on here? What are you doing? Who's in there? The inciting incident is next. This is the incident that changes the course of the main character's life in some major way. If the inciting incident didn't happen, there would be no story to tell. At least there's not one worth telling. So it's kind of really, it's the most important point in the story. The inciting incident takes place when the two families discover that their daughters have disappeared and they can't find them anywhere, which results in them realizing that the daughters have been abducted. After the families search the neighborhood and come up with nothing, we run into the first payoff in the film. This RV was subtly planted earlier in the movie with the girls playing on it, and it hints to the audience to pay attention that this has something to do with the story. Something sinister is taking place that has to do with this RV in some capacity. There's a few more plants between now and the first pinch point, but I won't spoil them. The first pinch point is an event in the story where we're reminded of who the antagonist is and what's at stake. It's a reminder of the opposing force of the story, but it has no influence from the experience of the protagonist, but instead shows us the villain exactly as they are. This point can also display our hero's reactions to what's been happening up to this point and how he's dealing with the world around him that he lives in now. It can also show the hero starting to formulate a plan of action. When the first pinch point of this movie begins to come into view, the conflict is only rising, and it's been rising ever since the Thanksgiving dinner. Keller's feeling overwhelmed because now the only suspect is being let loose. The first pinch point is when Alex Jones is released from custody and he's no longer a suspect, and Keller walks up on him and hears his comment about knowing where the girls are.
They didn't cry until I left them. What did you say? What did you say?
Keller takes this comment as kind of an admission of guilt from Alex, and at this moment, right here, This is where Keller makes up his mind about what he's going to do. The next story point from here, we have the first plot point. This is sometimes called the change of plans point, and it involves something happening to our hero that changes the desire into something more defined or makes a goal more visible. For example, around this time, Keller has kidnapped Alex. Keller's actions during the first plot point circles back to the opening scene and the plant from when he was hunting with the sun. He feels as if the world around him is working against him. Drama is created when a protagonist is applied with not only increasing but also constant pressure from all sides. Keller has a missing daughter. He's got little support from the police force. On top of that, he's got a depressed and sedated wife. And now, showing Alex to his best friend doesn't help much either.
Tell me! Tell me! Tell me! Where's my daughter? Where's my daughter?
And this leads to the obstacle in the story. When Franklin tells his wife about Alex, and they both confront Keller about what he's doing.
What the hell are you thinking?
The midpoint is the next point. It's pretty obvious this is about halfway through the movie. This is also called the point of no return. It's where something happens that changes the course of the story entirely. But the midpoint doesn't always have to be a positive thing. In Prisoners, it's when Keller is walking to the apartment and realizes that Detective Loki, Jake Gyllenhaal, is on his trail. And then he backtracks, goes into the liquor store, comes out and talks to Loki.
And why did you look for my fucking daughter? Motherfucking... Hey. Don't follow me. Hey.
This is a suspense drama film, and it does serve its purpose of adding to the pressure surrounding our main character in a huge way. So yeah, it does count as a midpoint. Next, we have the false sense of security. It's exactly how it sounds. Our character gets comfortable in the situation and starts to believe things are going to work out for them. They sometimes throw caution to the wind. They begin making poorly thought out decisions or no decisions at all. The false sense of security point is marked here when Detective Loki gets a call and rushes off out of the apartment and leaves Keller to catch his breath, undiscovered with Alex. This leads to the second plot point, or the major setback. This is when something happens to the hero that makes the audience feel like all is lost and there's no hope, there's no coming back. It's when the character makes a decision that makes it nearly impossible for them to return to the life they had before all these things started happening. In this movie, it's when Keller realizes that torturing Alex is pretty much getting him nowhere.
What maze? Where's the maze? Where do I find it? Alex.
And he's only losing time. It's here where he decides he needs a new strategy completely. The next part is the climax. This is the most intense period of the story. The hero has to face the biggest obstacle by taking their fate into their own hands and gather their resources and confront their problems head on.
You were there.
I was where?
By this point in the story, Keller's aware of what's going on with Holly Jones and why Alex is the way he is. He suspects that she's behind his daughter's abduction, and he goes to confront Holly. It doesn't work out so well for him, as she knew he was onto her.
Little more, Mr. Dover. Little more. Good, isn't it?
So now Keller is forced into a dark hole with nothing but a belly full of sleepy time Kool-Aid and a bullet wound in the leg. With Keller being held prisoner, we now enter into the final stage of the story, the resolution.
Make sure they cremate me. I sure as hell don't want to be buried in some box.
Both hands! Right now! Right now!
This is where everything is wrapped up nicely. The characters find what they've been looking for the whole time, or at least something close. This is Keller's daughter recovering. This is Alex being reunited with his family. It's Detective Loki maybe hearing the sound of the whistle from under the car. So that is the fundamental elements of a script story structure as explained using the movie Prisoners. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.